Hi, my name is Dr. Parky Lau. I'm a clinical psychologist licensed in the state of California as well as the province of Ontario, and I love talking about everything mental health. And today I'll be focusing on the fight or flight response. What is it, and what are some strategies that we can use to get us out of this fight or flight response back down to a little bit more of a calmer baseline? So let's start with what is the fight or flight response. So our fight or flight response is essentially our body's automatic reaction to potential danger or threats in the environment, where it's basically saying, okay, like there's something dangerous happening here, so we need to make sure that the body is ready to either fight or flight against the danger. And the body does so by, for example, increasing our heart rate, so oxygen pumping into different parts of our body. It stops, spending so much time on the resting and digesting because, we don't want to be digesting food or focus on that when we might be food for a bear. So as you can imagine, the fight or flight response isn't inherently a bad thing. In fact, it's something that is very evolutionarily adaptive in order to protect us against potential threats that could be life-threatening. On the other hand, for some people, like those who struggle with a lot of anxiety, it kind of feels like their fight or flight response is always on, or it reacts very powerfully to even like the smallest stressors. So in those cases, we want to make sure that our internal smoke alarm is actually working as intended by calming it down at certain times and making sure that it doesn't kind of explode every time something in the environment is a little bit dangerous. So now let's talk about some ways that we can turn down our sympathetic nervous system, turn off the fight or flight response, and bring us back down into our rest and digest slash parasympathetic nervous system, which activates in order to bring us back into a calmer baseline. So in terms of turning down our fight or flight response, I'm going to walk us through 5 strategies that I often use with patients to get them from feeling this sort of high intensity distress all the way down to a calmer baseline, feeling good and happy in their daily life. So step number 1 is actually developing more awareness, because if we don't notice what's actually happening in our body, we don't know when we are in fight or flight response, then it becomes a little bit tricky to actually be able to do anything to change it. So one thing that can be helpful is to take more greater awareness of what is happening in your body right now and at different times of your day. You might do a sort of a check-in. Notice, are your muscles quite tight? Are you feeling kind of agitated and restless? Is there something else in your body that cues you to know that you are actually in this sort of fight or flight mode? So it's important to identify what are potential triggers as well as what are potential cues that you know that you yourself are in sort of that fight or flight mode, or your sympathetic nervous system is being activated. And this can look a little bit different from person to person. For some people, it might be that, they notice this most in the morning and they notice their sort of heart palpitating really quickly, or they're feeling sweaty, or something else is happening in their body, they're feeling dizzy or feeling really hot. Whatever that looks like for you, take awareness as to what are the potential triggers, what are the things that usually lead you to the fight or flight response, and then number 2, what are the main cues, physical or otherwise, let you know that you are actually in that space right now. And I often think about the fight or flight response or our distress almost like an emotional thermometer. So oftentimes when we start with a sort of fight or flight response, we're going from 0 to 10, where 10 is kind of like that general sense of like really powerful fight or flight response. Our mind is kind of really busy. We might be feeling it really intensely in our body. And as we engage in strategies, we might notice that the temperature on our emotional thermometer continues to reduce. And the reason why this is important is because I think different skills can be really helpful at different levels of the emotional thermometer. So let's do this systematically and work our way from the top all the way down to the bottom. So what do we do when we're at the highest point of the emotional thermometer? What are some ways that we can manage that panic? And one distress tolerance strategy that I often find helpful is the TIP skills, which stands for temperature, intense exercise, paced breathing, and progressive muscle relaxation. So first of all, in terms of temperature, one strategy that can be helpful would be to get a bucket of ice or cold water and put your face right into it. And this activates something called our dive reflex, which sort of slows down our breathing, slows down our heart rate, which acts kind of in opposition to the feelings of panic where heart is racing and our breathing is fast and shallow. And this can be done in many different ways. You could even take a nice cool towel and put it on your face, an ice cube, splash your face with some cold water. Just something like that allows us to immediately use that dive reflex to bring us back into a little bit more of a calmer mood. Number 2 is intense exercise. So intense exercise could be like doing a bunch of burpees, a bunch of push-ups, running and sprinting really quickly. This is also another way to kind of exert out the sort of panic feeling that we feel, which can be quite helpful to kind of allow ourselves to alleviate some of those symptoms afterwards. So you can kind of choose your own adventure in terms of what you'd like. Could be push-ups, could be jumping jacks, could be burpees, whatever floats your goat for, 20, 30 seconds. For paced breathing or diaphragmatic breathing, I'm sure you all kind of have some strategies where you've kind of tried your best to breathe in with your nose, really get that air into your diaphragm, and then breathe out slowly through your mouth. Usually there can be many different ways of like how you might do the ins and outs of the breathing technique. For some people, it might be box breathing, where we breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for 4 seconds, breathe out for 4 seconds, and then another pause for 4 seconds, and then rinse and repeat as needed. For other people, they use sort of like a, for example, 4-6-2 method, where it's almost like a bit of a triangle where you breathe in for 4 seconds, hold for a couple seconds, and then breathe out for 6 seconds. And sometimes people find that breathing out for a little bit longer than they breathe in can actually be quite helpful from a panic relieving perspective. Finally, progressive muscle relaxation is a way that we intentionally tense up certain parts of our body for a few seconds and then let go and relax our parts of our body. And we do this systematically until we kind of get through our entire body. I won't go through an entire practice with you or anything like that. There are many videos if you search up progressive muscle relaxation, if that's something that you'd be interested in trying. Now that we've used the tip skills that bring us from the highest point of the emotional thermometer down to a slightly more manageable place, another strategy that can be really helpful is the use of self-soothe activities. So this is where we're using things like our 5 senses, things that we can taste or smell or touch, whatever that feels right for you, to be able to continually bring that sort of fight or flight response down. So this could be, holding a nice warm cup of coffee, it could be smelling the coffee, it could be listening to music or running a bubble bath, smelling some candles. This is again a kind of a choose your own adventure. Whichever senses feel most inviting for you and is comforting for you, that can be another way to bring our sort of high emotional thermometer temperature down to a more medium one, and then bring this down to sort of a lower intensity feeling. So as you can see, we're almost chaining different exercises together, like the tip skills and the self-soothe skills, to bring us down from a high temperature all the way down to now sort of like a low heat. And where things can be helpful in this context might be to reduce our emotional vulnerability even more. So we might still be kind of walking around feeling like there's a little bit of a chip on our shoulders, like we're not super bothered right now, but if anything did happen, we might kind of flare back up into feeling more and more in that fight or flight response. So the strategy that can be helpful in this context are the ABCs. So what ABC stands for is accumulate positives, build mastery, and cope ahead. And each of these strategies help to increase our sense of emotional resilience by doing things that give us a sense of nourishment. So A stands for accumulate positive emotions. So continuing doing activities in your daily life that give you a small sense of joy or happiness. And this could be taking a walk, spending time with your dog, talking to a friend or a family member, just little things in your day that you can sprinkle a little bit of joy into. And again, this can be something super low stakes, like getting your favorite coffee or, taking that walk and looking at some trees. Things can be very low stakes and take minimal time, but still give you a good sense of that positive emotion. B stands for building mastery. And this is something that gives us a sense of confidence and competence in our daily life to be able to navigate life's stressors. So this could be something like learning a new language, maybe doing a Duolingo lesson. It could be learning an instrument or cleaning up your room, making your bed. All of those things are small little things that we can build a sense of mastery into our lives to feel more resilient in our daily lives against stressors. And finally, C stands for coping ahead. So in this context, coping ahead basically means identifying what are potential things down the road that could really impact me. Like for example, maybe you have a meeting with the in-laws down the road, or a certain exam that you're going to be super stressed about, or a busy season at work. What are small things I can do right now to kind of prepare myself a little bit ahead of time so that I can identify what might be the potential triggers and then problem solve or get strategies as needed to make sure that my time in that stressful moment is as pleasant as possible. So now that we've developed some skills to gain greater awareness of when we are in the fight or flight response, and some different skills to chain together to go from the top of the emotional thermometer all the way down to a calmer baseline, the last step would be to figure out some ways to make sure that more or less generally, you're staying in that sort of calmer baseline and the parasympathetic activated nervous system. And one way to establish a consistently low baseline is through regular relaxation practices, along with continuing with the ABCs. And the reason why relaxation exercises can be so helpful is because they act in some ways directly in opposition to the sympathetic nervous system. Like think about it, when we are in sort of a fight or flight mode, our breath is very shallow and rapid, our heart rate's super quick, we're feeling really hot, for example. But all of the strategies in terms of regular relaxation practices, like deep breathing, like muscle relaxation, like guided imagery practices, or all the other different exercises that you can find on YouTube, they actually act in opposition in that like it slows your breathing, makes them a lot more deeper, deeper. It allows your heart rate to slow down. It kind of lightens instead of tenses your muscles. So all of those things allow us to kind of understand more and more how we should feel when our fight or flight response is disengaged and we're back into a rest and digest state. So I would definitely encourage you to find some small pocket of time where, even if it's just for a minute or 2 minutes, that you have time to engage in some sort of relaxation practice every day. It could be like a 2-minute break from work when you're in the bathroom, doing a few deep breaths. It could be, after dinner where there's nothing else to do besides to kind of chill out for the evening. And that could be like a few minutes where you can do some practice and throw up a YouTube video, for example. Just something that allows you to consistently and sustainably continue with some sort of relaxation practice. So thanks for watching as always. I hope this video was helpful for you to learn a little bit more about some ways to at least reduce our fight or flight response in the context of when we feel like we're constantly feeling overwhelmed or it doesn't make sense for a fight or flight response to be activated. As I discussed, the fight or flight response is not inherently a bad thing. In fact, it can be super, super helpful in so many ways. It's just that when it becomes a little bit overactivated, then we want some strategies to bring our emotional thermometer from the top and back down to a calmer baseline. Thanks for watching as always, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye-bye.